Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what does the 4th of July mean to someone who was never meant to be free? Because in 1852, that's exactly the question that Frederick Douglass asked. And 172 years later, we still need to hear his answer. Now, before we go any further, if you believe that Black history should be taught all year long and not just during the month of February, go ahead and subscribe to Unlocking Black History. And if you're a parent, grandparent, teacher, or community leader trying to teach your children the truths that our schools deliberately refuse to teach, then this channel is for you. Join our private Facebook group when you're done watching. The link is in the description below. Once again, I am excited to share another video with you. Frederick Douglass's speech, "What to the Slave is the 4th of July," is widely considered one of the most powerful orations in American history. And I'm here to tell you, if you've never read it or even listened to it, you're missing something sacred. This is required reading for every American, but especially Black Americans and our children coming up behind us. Now, why does this matter? Because Frederick Douglass was a man born into slavery. He escaped, he fought. He became an abolitionist, a publisher, a speaker, and a leader. He didn't just study the brutality of slavery, he survived it. And yet, he was invited to deliver the keynote for the 4th of July celebration. The irony was thick. While white Americans gathered to celebrate freedom, 3 million of our people remained in chains. He delivered this speech to the Rochester Ladies Anti-Slavery Society in 1852. And what he said still echoes loud today. A few months ago, I had the honor of visiting the city of Boston, and I stood inside the historic Freedom House, one of the oldest church structures in America. I stood on those same wooden floors, and the building still possesses the very podium Frederick Douglass once spoke from. I contemplated how he stood there over 170 years ago, not as a guest, but as someone crying out into the wilderness. And it was in that moment that I realized we are not just here to remember his words, we are here to continue them. Frederick Douglass begins his speech with humility, but also with intention. Mr. President, friends, fellow citizens, he who could address this audience without quelling sensation has stronger nerves than I have. I do not remember ever to have appeared as a speaker before any assembly more shrinkingly, nor with greater distrust in my ability. He speaks like a man balancing two worlds, honoring his audience while calling out the contradictions in front of him. He reminds them and us that the distance between where he was born, a slave plantation, and where he is standing, a decorated platform, is vast. And that irony is not lost on him. Now watch what he does here. He says, "This to you is the 4th of July, your political freedom. The celebration also marks another year of your national life. It reminds you that the Republic of America is now 76 years old. Notice the repetition of you in your country, your independence, your celebration." This is Frederick Douglass beginning to draw the line in the sand, because he knows that freedom isn't universal, not yet. And then he paints a picture. Great streams are not easily turned from channels, but while the river may not be turned aside, it may dry up. As with the rivers, so with the nations. In other words, America's identity isn't fixed, but if it allows slavery to define it, it risks moral ruin. Even then, Frederick Douglass was warning us, if we don't address the injustices at the root, the entire tree will rot. And then comes the heart of the speech. Fellow citizens, pardon me, allow me to ask, why am I called upon here today? What have I or those that I represent to do with your national independence? And finally, What to the American slave is the 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than any other day of the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. Frederick Douglass calls it what it is, a celebration of freedom in a land that denies that very freedom to millions. Then he says, the existence of slavery in this country brands your republicanism a shame, your humanity a base pretense, and your Christianity a lie. Here in 2025, some of that still hits home. Now, here's what most people miss. Frederick Douglass didn't throw away the Constitution, he reclaimed it. There is neither warrant, license, nor sanction of slavery in the Constitution. Interpreted correctly, it is a glorious liberty document. He believed the founding principles, if applied honestly, could serve all Americans. He saw the Constitution not as a failed promise, but as an unfinished one. Now, pause with me for 1 second. We are in a time when diversity, equity, and inclusion programs are being rolled back. Books are being banned, and Black history is being scrubbed from the curriculum. And this is from the highest office in the land. We hear languages that suggest that people like you and me, Black people, immigrants, progressives, people of color, are somehow less than. That's not by coincidence. That's erasure. All over again. And it's exactly why Frederick Douglass's speech matters today. Even after everything he said, the confrontation, the rebuke, the pain, Frederick Douglass ends with this: notwithstanding the dark picture I have this day presented, I do not despair of this country. There are forces in operation which must inevitably work the downfall of slavery. I leave off what I began, with hope. Ironically, at the conclusion of this harsh rebuke, he received a standing ovation. Hope. He had hope, and so do I. That's why I show up here every week. That's why Unlocking Black History exists, because our stories are never over. If this video moved you, I highly recommend the book, Frederick Douglass by Benjamin Quarles. A powerful and honest look into the life and legacy of one of our greatest leaders. You can find this title and more in our full Black History Library. The link is in the description below. If you believe that history matters, like, comment, share, and subscribe. And don't stop here. Join our private Facebook group where the conversations go deeper, the questions get louder, and the truth never stops flowing. Because if we don't tell our own stories, they'll continue to write their own. I'll see you at the next video.